The prime numbers of science of mind. Have you guys been wondering about that since you heard about that? Let's start with prime words of science of mind, but let's start with prime numbers. The definition. The definition of prime numbers is a number that can be divided only by 1 and itself, right?
Yes.
Okay. There are words that works with as well. Did you know that? And I'm going to show you where some of those words are. Please bring up our identity prayer. There you go. So let's say this together. I know that within myself there is that life which is perfect, complete, divine. It was never born and cannot die, for it lives and is God. Within myself is the wholeness, peace, poise, and power of life. This life is health. It is abundance. It is love. There is one life. It is the life of God. And this is my life now. And so it is. So this is filled with what I call prime words. Perfect, complete, divine. Peace, poise, and power. Abundance, health, love. These are prime words. And these words are, if you ask yourself, well, what do I get when if I got this, it's this. This is what you get. Imagine yourself walking around every day feeling peace, poise, and power. You know, think for a second about the last day, the last time you got really upset about something. Something just did not go your way. This is not hard for me to imagine. It's not even all that long ago. How about you? Right? Now imagine that circumstance. That same circumstance with you standing in peace, poise, and power. The circumstance doesn't change. But imagine how you would change and how that experience would feel if that same factual thing happened, whatever it was, same circumstance happened, but you were standing in peace, poise, and power. Now, science of mind is pretty heady. And like I said earlier, the thing is to get it from here to here. So it isn't just saying peace, poise, and power, it's feeling it. It's when you look at your bank account and it may show empty, and yet you are standing in a place of abundance, health, love. When we stand in that place, and when I say stand, I'm not talking about thinking about it. I'm talking about feeling it, right? Bringing it down into here. I have a saying, truth is only truth if it roots all the way down. If it doesn't root, it's not truth. So what roots? Does fear root? Is fear real? It can feel real, right? Fear can feel real. But just because it feels real doesn't make it so. Are you with me on this? You know, I had somebody speak to me the other day, was very upset. And they ended with what they were saying is, I'm speaking my truth. No, they weren't. They were speaking their authenticity. And people really tend to mix this thing up. Now, somebody might say this is just semantics, but I don't believe in semantics because words have power. Are we clear here that words have power? Yes. That means there's no such thing as semantics. The word you use makes a difference. Truth is only truth if it roots all the way down. And yet we can be authentic in our upset because that's what's happening for us. But that doesn't make it true. It just makes it what we're feeling in the moment. Can you get the difference here? because it can feel different in your body. And that's what we're really talking about here. Not what you're thinking about it in your head, but how does it feel in your body? You know, when you're moving around with these words and these feelings and these ideas, you know, how is it affecting how you're moving in the world? Right? You know, because that's what we're really going for here. So, the idea is to take these principles and move them down into our heart. And one of the ways I have been able to do that the most is through being clear about what a prime word is and if I'm not there. So let me give you an example, because we had to do this a lot. I don't know about others' practitioner training, but in my practitioner training, one of the exercises we did over and over and over again is when somebody would come and say, please treat for something, you'd ask them, well, if you got that, then what would you have? So for instance, somebody comes and goes, I want you to treat for me to have a new car. Okay, what would you have? What would that give you if you had a new car? Well, if I had a new car, I could get around a whole lot easier. Okay, so if you could get around a whole lot easier, what would that give you? Well, if I could get around a whole lot easier, I could find work, and I'd be able to get to that work, and I'd have more security around that. Okay, so if you had more security, what would that give you? Well, then I would feel more free, and I'd be more present, and I'd be able to concentrate on the things I really love. Okay, so if you could concentrate on the things you really love, what would that give you? A fulfilling life, a flourishing life. Okay, so you would feel perfect, complete, divine. Yes. Well, what if we just treat for that? And then all of a sudden, maybe how their lives unfold looks completely different than getting a new car, and yet they're getting around and they're free, because all of a sudden somebody calls up and goes, hey, I got this old clunker I'm just, wanting to get rid of. I'll let you have it for $100. And it works fantastic. Or what happens is, hey, I live next door to you, and I'm looking to drive, I'm looking to be a driver, and I charge like a quarter of what Uber charges. Would you be interested? I mean, you just don't know, right? You don't know how things might develop if you give yourself the opportunity to get past the process you think you need to get what it is you really want. Are you with me on this? Because this has changed my life. This idea, this concept, this experience changed me. And so I'm sharing something not from theory, not from books, but from the actual transformation that occurred in my life. And I want to make you guys a promise. I want you guys to understand that I am never, ever, ever going to stand up here and talk about something I haven't experienced myself. That what I'm going to share with you is this is what's really happened for me, and give you an opportunity to try it on for size. What one of my teachers called a working premise. Working premise is simply something where you don't have to believe it, just try it. See what happens. Right? So there was a time in my life I was positive that if only I had freedom, my life would be incredible. And the way to get freedom was to have more than enough money to not have to work, to be able to do whatever I wanted whenever I wanted to do it. And I was positive that my joy and happiness was right there in that. And so I wound up getting this job that made me a ton of money. I mean, a ton of money. And when I left the job, they kept paying me for 3 more years. And I had tons of money. And I took my family and we moved to this gorgeous town called Asheville, North Carolina, my family at the time. And we were down in Asheville, and we hadn't been there more than a couple of weeks, and my bank account's overflowing, more than enough to do. I mean, we were doing things like I would wake up in the morning and say, why don't we fly to Washington, D.C. today and just go visit the Lincoln Memorial? And we'd go do it, because we had the money to do that, right? Why don't we go to Maui? Wake up in the morning and just decide anything, and we could go do it. That we had that kind of money. And there I am standing in Asheville, North Carolina. We just bought an incredibly beautiful house. And I was walking downtown, and I was looking out at the gorgeous scenery, and I busted out crying because I was so miserable. I was so miserable. I was hating myself in my life. And I realized that I had actually achieved what I had always thought was going to give me joy. And it hadn't. And it was at that moment that I realized that I needed to dig into myself a whole lot deeper to find out what was really going to make me happy, because right then I was suicidal. I was like, I had just achieved everything, and I was miserable. It wasn't long after that my wife left me. It wasn't long after that I got so sick the doctors were telling me I only had 3 days to live. Well, actually, that happened a little before that. The order of things is that happened first. That had already happened. But I didn't know why I was still around. I didn't even want to be around. And the one thing my ex-wife did for me was she left a card of a guy named Dr. John Waterhouse, who was a marriage counselor at that time, and said, you really ought to go see this guy. And I thought we were going to go see it for marriage counseling, but she had no interest in being with me anymore. So I went in and saw this guy, Dr. Waterhouse, and we hit it off, and he started counseling me and kept inviting me to his church, but I don't do church. So I was like, no, I'm not going. I'm not going. So after about 3 months of him coaching me and me counseling me and me seeing my life starting to improve with the things he was saying to me as he's feeding me science of mind and I don't even know it, one day he goes to me, he says, does everybody here know who Dr. John Waterhouse is? Anybody here doesn't? Okay, Dr. John Waterhouse was the president of our entire organization. He runs a nice church-sized church with his wife in Asheville, North Carolina, and is a magnificent human being and really steeped in the teachings. And so he keeps inviting me to his church, and I keep saying no. And one day he goes to me, you know, I know you're a musician. I'm singing next Sunday. Will you please come and support me? And I'm like, oh. After all the support he gave me, I guess I got to go, right? You know? So I go, and I listen to him sing, and his singing's not, not so great. But the message of what was possible inside each of us to awaken the Christ consciousness that is already in us, to come from a place of where we know ourselves as God and have a life that is just magnificent, really spoke to me. And I kept going. Took classes. By the way, Reverend Trish is right. You want to take classes, because that's where you get into the heart of this stuff. I mean, I just kept taking classes and kept taking classes until I became a practitioner, and kept taking classes, watching my life kind of explode. And all of a sudden, and then the day came when I started realizing all the little things I kept treating for were not, I was doing it again. I was treating for things that weren't going to give me the joy I really wanted, and got myself back to the same question I asked myself on that bridge that day, which is, what's going to give me real joy? What is it that's going to truly feed me and give me real joy? I was already of service at the church. I was helping out every week doing, either running sound or sometimes performing or putting together their computer systems. I was helping with the construction of the new church they were building. I mean, I was in there all the time doing whatever I could do, and I still wasn't knowing what was going to give me that deep sense of joy that I wanted to feel. Till I found this. And then all of a sudden, instead of treating for cars, I started treating for love, abundance, I started treating to actually be peace, poise, and power. I started knowing my life to be full and flourishing. Now, the Buddhists, they want you to let go of everything, and actually, there's lots of people in our movement who say, just take the first 2 steps of treatment and that's enough. You know, if you know yourself, know that everything, we have a 5-step treatment thing, prayer thing that we do here. All right, the first step is knowing that that everything is God. There's nothing outside of God. It's all just one. It's all there is. And you saw Rev Trish up here, and she's speaking to that. And it's more than hearing her words. You could see that she was feeling that, because that's really what it takes, right? To get to that place where you actually feel it. You're not just saying words, you're feeling it, right? And then you get to that second step of treatment where it's basically just saying, well, since it's all one, I got to be that one too. I'm not just a child of God. I'm not just a drop in the ocean. I'm the entire ocean in a drop, like Rumi says, right? And then feeling that. Well, that's not so easy sometimes, right? Because there's all this stuff going on around us, but that's what we're after, is to feel that. And a lot of people say that once you feel that, you're done. You got it. But and so for a while, that's what I was being with, for myself. And then I realized, I'm a creator. Maybe you are too. And in creating, we want to see things show up. We want to see stuff show up. I do. I love watching stuff show up. And when I mean stuff, I don't just mean like a car or a house or this or that. I mean, like I like to create art. I like to write songs. I like to write books. I like to write. And I don't draw much, but I like to write. And I like to talk, and I like to perform, and, those kinds of ways of expression, right? You have your unique ways of expression. But I found that when I just thought about how that was going to show up in my life, I could easily lead myself astray. Back to that place of what I call a dead end. So what I started doing was opening it up to what I wanted to feel. And in the end, the more I worked with it, all I came to was full, flourishing life. I wanted my life to feel full and flourishing. Whatever it looked like, what did I care? As long as that's how it felt, like all the time. Now, maybe that's different for you. You have to decide for that. But I got to tell you, once I got to the idea of focusing on these prime words, once I got to the idea that this was about being led, and then noticing when something showed up for me to do, and so I have a question around that, which I've shared before, which is this mine to do? Something shows up. That somebody has a good idea. Or I have a good idea and it shows up, and I got to ask myself, is this mine to do? And if my entire being doesn't go, yes, I don't do it. I used to sit around and rationalize and go, well, maybe that's a good idea. Maybe I ought to do it. Sounds like I should do it. And dead end. Every single time. So now I just wait for that big yes. And it has led me to the most extraordinary life beyond what I could ever imagine. I have to tell you, it never dawned on this Jewish boy to become a minister. That's not something that ever crossed my mind when I was thinking, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm going to be a minister. Never happened. But because I was willing to simply go with the yes, whether I thought it was crazy or not, because I got to tell you, many of the steps I started taking seemed in my mind crazy to me. But I was willing to go with it, willing to be with it. And it has led me to marrying the most magnificent woman on the planet. It has led me to a level of health, a level of financial well-being, and it has led me to you. And I got to tell you how full and flourishing I feel being up here with you. And what I know for each of you is that you get to feel the way I now feel in your lives. Each and every one of you, I know it. I know it's possible because I came from a place of standing on a bridge where I just wanted to die. And now I stand here astounded because I stuck with the prime words. I stuck with the question, is this mine to do? With the affirmation that time is on my side. This is what a flourishing life feels like. Right? It's not just thinking. This is actually what it feels like. And this is what it can feel for you. No matter what your age, no matter what time of life it is, you still get to have it if you're willing to own it. So let's say this one more time together. I know that within myself there is that life which is perfect, complete, divine. It was never born and cannot die, for it lives and is God. Within myself is the wholeness, peace, poise, and power of life. This life is health. It is abundance. It is love. There is one life. It is the life of God. And this is my life now, and so it is. I love you guys, and I look so forward to being with you here week after week. Join us in classes. Trish is an amazing teacher. We got practitioners here who are amazing at this stuff. Join us. I love you. Thank you. Okay, well, our prosperity acceptors, step up, please. One more slide. There you go. So, prosperity acceptors. Good, good. 1, 2. So this is a time where I ask you to give. I ask you to give, to be generous, to support this center, because what you give multiplies abundantly. It returns to you, multiplied abundantly. That what we are setting up here is a flow, right? And you want to get into that flow. You can feel the energy of it. When you give it away. So what I want you to do is take out what you're going to give and hold it in your hand. Hold it in your hand. If it's folded up, unfold it. Hold it in your hand, knowing that this is source. This is God too. Money, let's read this together. God is the source of all supply. Money is God in action. What we give, we receive multiplied abundantly. All that God is, I am. So it is.
In this moment, in this place, I remember who I am, letting fear and worry fall away from me. I open my eyes and see there is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only